We're without Julian today, so you've got me. Hello, my name is Jenny Lewis. I'm Director of HR and OD. Lovely to see you. Great to be able to introduce today's report out. As I understand it, have we got a slide with the agenda, or are we starting with Christina first of all, and then going on to I'm just trying to read what's in front of me. Sorry, folks, I've not seen the agenda. Are we starting with Christina, and then I'll get my act together?
My name is Christina Kozlowska. I'm the Head of Patient Experience at the Trust. And the first thing I want to say today is, wow, this is a 90-day report out for this piece of work that we've been doing. And, it feels like it has absolutely flown by. So for those of you who are less familiar with it, we've been doing a piece of work to improve the complainants' experience in the organisation, and we've done this by kickstarting it with a KPO event that took place in September with just 4 of our CSUs. So we've got the brilliant teams on the call today. ESM, Children's, TRS and ASM have been taking part in this. And as a result of that Kaizen event that took place, we kind of agreed 2 areas of focus that we'd look at. And we know actually that complainants really don't like waiting a long time for their complaint responses to appear. So the first thing we looked at was, let's see what we can do to improve the timeliness of complaint responses. And then we also know that it's frustrating if a complainant receives a letter that they're not satisfied with and that they might go on to reopen it. So the second thing we wanted to look at was the quality of our complaint responses. So the CSUs undertook to go away and work out ways with us how they could improve both those aspects of the care we provide to those individuals. Next slide, please. So the teams are going to come and talk in more detail about the work that they've done at CSU level, but I just wanted to give you some information about the data, what the data is looking like in relation to this fabulous project. Now, we know, we're not going to see data changes as quickly in complaints work as we do with some of the projects that come through their report out. And that's because complaints stay in our system for a long period of time, even if they're delivered on time. So it can be hard for that to become apparent to start with. And so we absolutely know that we're going to have to monitor this for some time into the future in order for us to get that assurance that changes have been embedded. But nevertheless, we have some really, really exciting stuff to be able to report today that, albeit is based on minimal numbers of complaints that have come through each of the services so far, it is really positive in terms of what it's telling us. So the first thing we've looked at on this this slide that is actually really quite hard to see, I think, is information that talks about the lead time. So this is the amount of time it takes for a complaint to hit the CSU and then be at the point of a response being ready to be reviewed and quality assured. And what this slide tells you is that we have had brilliant improvements in our CSUs around that, with a 70% improvement for AMS in the time it's taken them to do that bit of work, a 34% improvement in children's and a 25% improvement in ESM. Now, these relate only to complaints that have been received by the CSU since this programme was initiated. So, as I say, are minimal in number, but nevertheless really impressive that we're already seeing the time taken for those to be turned around improving. TRS, you'll note I haven't mentioned, and that's not because they're not fabulous, just that we haven't got the data so far to be able to assess that for them. The second piece on this very complicated slide looks at something called work in process. And for us, what we've been looking at here is the backlog of complaints that have been in the system for these CSUs, because actually the ideal position for us to get to, of course, is one where the CSUs are so on top of the complaints that they have that they can deal with them as they come in the front end and get on with managing them as soon as they arrive, because they haven't got the pressure of the backlog sitting there, in addition, increasing their workload. So all of them have done lots of work on trying to get through the backlog that they had in the system at the 1st of September when this all kicked off. And so the progress to report against that, some of our CSUs are bigger, AMS and ESM being our bigger CSUs for the number of complaints they receive. So AMS have completed, closed down 29 out of 40 of their complaints so far, brilliant. Children's, a little bit smaller, had 14 in the system, all closed down. ESM, 41 out of 52, again, brilliant. And 15 out of 17 for TRS. The TRS are nearly there. And you know, my reflection around this has been an incredibly busy time, hasn't it, for our CSUs? And yet we've still seen this progress, which I'm incredibly pleased about, incredibly grateful to them for. We also introduced a new complaint timeliness. This was a really important piece of work we did to consider that perhaps not all the complaints that come into our system should be managed within the same time frame. So we have changed that, and instead of applying a blanket 40-day turnaround target to all our complaints, we now stratify these into 20, 40 or 60 days. So in relation to the 20-day complaints, we're monitoring those really quite closely, because we know that that might be the biggest challenge to our CSUs to deliver. And just to report for these CSUs so far, since October, when this new framework came into play, 9 complaints have been received that fall within that category, and to date 2 have been closed. So we are starting to see them being delivered, which is good news. And then finally on this slide, we look at quality in relation to defects. And defects in relation to complaints really for us has been looking at the reopened complaints we get, because we want to identify the number of defects, the number of reopened complaints that occur for reasons that the CSUs can influence. Now, we do get reopened complaints for all sorts of reasons, and often they can't be influenced. For instance, if a complainant comes back with a completely new question. But for those that are influenceable, if that's a word, we've taken a look at what that looks like. So this month, TRS and ESM had no reopened complaints at all for us to be able to assess that. So returned a 0% achievement. And AMS and Children's did have some reopened complaints, but not for reasons that they could influence. So wonderful, great position for us to be able to report, and no defects noted. So newspaper, please, next slide. Right, everyone, so this is our newspaper, and these were the actions that we committed to deliver at the beginning of the programme. One focused on timeliness and the other focused on quality of complaints. So the first item you'll see here that relates to timeliness has been completed. And what this means in reality is that we have got standard work processes in place in all our CSUs now. We're holding weekly accountability meetings that take place regularly. And again, just want to say, thanks to the CSUs, because they are coming to the table and still continuing those conversations with us, despite the fact that they are incredibly busy at this moment in time. So absolutely wonderful. The second item here relates to quality of complaint responses and talks about a masterclass that their complaints team have delivered to all the CSUs to support them to improve their letter writing. And we've just held our first, it was this time last week, almost, our first coaching session with one of our CSUs, ESM. And it would be fair to say we're learning from that experience going forward. We found that it was a really tricky thing to deliver something that you would normally do face-to-face around a table, actually on a one-to-one basis, helping somebody understand how to write something in an improved way. How to deliver that across teams is a tricky old thing to get right. So we've got some learning to do, but we have nevertheless started that process of working out how best to do it in this virtual world we now live in. So Those coaching sessions will continue over the next month, and we'll all learn together how to get that right. And then finally on this slide, it just talks about the recognition that we know it's important for CSUs to also work towards a position where they maintain an understanding of their own internal defects. It's a regular topic in our accountability meetings, and the CSUs will tell you a little bit more themselves about the data that they're internally collecting to assist them to understand where they could further improve. So thanks very much for listening to me. I'm now going to pass you over to John, who's the other process owner associated with this work, and he's going to tell you a little bit about what our complaints team have been doing. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, Jenny. Hello, everybody else. I'll start again. For those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that most of you do know, the complaints team are here to support all the CSUs in managing complaints that come through into our organisation. They also have been working fantastically hard to help support this KPO programme. And since the programme started, we have written a new complaints policy, which I'm sure you'll all be desperate to read. It's on the intranet and also on the internet for people to read. It's a really user-friendly policy that focuses on people who need to use our service. We've also implemented the new complaint response time standard framework, which Christina has mentioned. And for the complaints team, this is a really challenging piece of work to make sure that all complaints that come through are appropriately assessed, that all CSUs know about the assessment, and also work together with the CSUs if there's any discussion about the correct response target as well. So that's been quite a challenge to implement, but the team have been brilliant at supporting this. We've also established a weekly complaints management meeting where myself and the two complaint managers meet to drive through the process to make sure the information is fed down to the complaint handlers. And actually, I'm as interested in listening to what the complaint handlers have about the process as I do about the CSUs. The two really go hand in hand together. The complaints handlers are actually now attending all the CSU complaint huddles that occur on a weekly basis. So all the CSUs involved, the handlers now attend those meetings, which from what I hear and from what I understand has been extremely helpful. And things like providing cover arrangements when the complaint handlers were on leave to make sure that is well established as well. Christina's talked about the open complaints. And the other thing we are looking at is about the delays when we receive complaints into the complaints team and then pass them out into the CSUs. And again, we're looking at our timeframes from that, and we don't have any reported delays with that, but we are going to be looking at our own internal process to see if we can enhance that as well. As Christina's mentioned about the coaching classes, the complaints team have been, I guess, pivotal in helping to define the coaching style, and also will continue to help with that as we move forward in the new way of delivering the master classes. As Christina said, we'll be learning from each one that we deliver, and the complaints team are there as observers to try and help us with that as well. Another big piece of work as well, which affects people from outside the CSUs in terms of the quality assurance process. So we have corporate quality assurers within the organisation who help to quality assure responses before they are sent off to the executive team. And we have undertaken quite a lot of work with regards to coaching the QAs, providing we've got a QA forum for us to discuss and debate how responses should be sensitively responded to. And we have got other elements. So, for instance, we've got a senior member of the safeguarding team who QAs complaints with regards to safeguarding. So we do try to make it a specific focus for QAs. And also the complaints that are sent back from the executive. We've used the word rejected here. I think we need to be a bit softer with that it might be requires another further look at rather than a rejection. We are now looking at those the responses that have been sent back. They are being sent back to the CSU and also the quality assurance, who can really look at the themes that are coming back from the executives as well. And finally, in terms of the complexity of the new the response time standard framework, you can see the complexity of the new data format that every 2 weeks we send an open report of complaints out to all the CSUs. When it was 40 days, it was relatively straightforward. Now we've got 20, 40 and 60 day reporting to every fortnight. And thanks to our information analyst who's produced this, and we are keeping this under review. I think it's relatively simple. It's relatively straightforward, but we may need to make amends as we move forward. So formatting the data is really important as well. I'd like to pass you on to the next slide, please. On to Julie, who's going to present the AMS update. Thank you.
Hi, afternoon. It's Julie Lofthouse, matron for Quality and Governance for AMS. I think we can safely say we've challenged ourselves on turning around the formal complaint process, but I think we have had some really great achievements, and that's despite COVID and despite all the workloads that everybody's got at the moment, and the pressures that everybody's under. We've had some real success with clinician engagement. We're getting really good comments, and they're in a timely way, and that's for us, you know, in a complex CSU, that's been great. We've had some non-clinical staff that have been supporting us with the complaints process, which has been really helpful. And that includes a Band 6 who's been helping us for 2 months working on our business and medical complaints, because they're the ones that tend to get a bit stuck. So we're starting to, what we're doing now, so we're starting to look at doing some measurements. So we wanted to look at the number of complaints that have been sent for external QA, those that have gone off without any comments and without any adjustments, and those that have come back with minor comments. So that's what we're looking at now. And that's a new process for us, really. We're using different QA individuals. So we've also done our standard work description, looking at 24 to 60 days. And alongside that, we've created a flow chart, and we've shared that with all the staff involved in complaints. And that's for them really to understand the difference and the structure and the process and what the expectations are of them. We've got an escalation process alongside that with the head of nursing, and we meet weekly. We've got staff going for the coaching classes. One of the things that's really worked really well for us is working with the patient experience team, and that's on the really tricky issues that sometimes come out of complaints where you get a bit stuck. We've had one recently where the complainant accused staff of being racist, and it's a really tricky issue to respond to. So patient experience team have helped us with that, and we've worked together. So rather than it go for QA and maybe potentially get rejected, we've made sure the tone is right and that it's sensitive response. We're also working with our specialist nursing team. So this is where patients can't get in for surgery but have ongoing issues. We've got the CNS teams to go in and help those patients and do telephone clinics with them. So the impact is there's a better ownership and engagement with the complaints process in the CSU. We're getting our comments and responses in a timelier way, and we're hoping that this will reduce bottleneck and that we won't have to rework the responses, and it's all for the benefit of the patients. So, thank you. Next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Celia Mackenzie, Head of Nursing at the Children's Hospital. I'm really excited to be here 90 days on, and as Christina says, that seems to have gone very quickly. It all seemed to be very daunting to begin with, and how were we ever going to achieve what we've actually achieved? And it's really great to be sat here today to say that all the 14 complaints we had originally have all disappeared off our board, and we've just got new complaints that are through now. What I would say is it's been absolutely brilliant to be part of this process, and as I speak to the slide, we've improved our process massively, and that was a really big part, you know, just getting your process right. So we currently have no complaints exceeding the agreed response time, and we're currently working now on getting further data, so looking at measuring the time from the internal QA to it actually going out to the complainant and being fully signed off, as well as measuring and monitoring the QA comments that come back if that's required. So those are the things that we will be focusing on in the coming months. We're continuing to meet monthly with the complaints team, and that is really helping. We're having really good discussion with them. And some of the more complex complaints, we can have a really good discussion and a conversation about how that response may look, as well as we've had a few that have been reopened, but reopened with brand new things that have come up from the complaint response that we've sent out. And that's been really helpful to have that discussion. It's also reduced the numbers of emails going backwards and forwards between the team. And I feel that that's been a real positive from this process. The time for the complaint to reach the CSU, the complaints team have worked really hard on that. So we are actually receiving a complaint almost as soon as it comes in, and then the complaint pack will come through perhaps a day or so later. But we can already be looking at that complaint. It's already logged on our board and we're already starting the process. The weekly huddle within the CSU is now embedded and using the complaint board, and it's been really positive to see the movement on the complaint board. So it's very visible that you can see that, you know, at the moment there's just a couple of complaints up there, but we did have a week where we didn't have anything, and it's really positive for the team, makes them feel more motivated rather than seeing all those complaints and thinking, oh my goodness, I've got those to answer. The call to the complainant's been really positive, and we're able to establish and make sure that we're answering the complaint as they would want it to be. It's finding out if there's any other questions that have arisen for them. The complaints are on the agenda for the tri-team meetings now. So the matron, the service manager have tri-meetings with the clinical lead, and we expect that to be on their agenda, and they're doing that really well. And we're also continuing to support the QA process by making sure that when we're sending the complaint for QA, that we're putting the QA having to ask what may be an obvious question. For instance, can you explain what that condition is? And so what's the impact? Well, it's improved the response to families. It's obviously improved the timeliness, the quality of the response. We have improved patient engagement and experience, massively improved our relationship with the complaints team, and it's improved staff morale. And next slide, please.
Hello, my name is Robin Darby, Deputy Head of Nursing for Emergency and Specialty Medicine. So what have we done in ESM up to now? So we've completed our standard work form and shared with Team ESM. We've continued our weekly complaints meeting with all staff who are responsible for complaints, which is going really well. And we've also got our complaints handler involved in those. We've also improved our engagement with all of our consultants within ESM around complaints writing. We've also introduced a matron call for all of our 20-day complaints to see if we can resolve them, but just via phone call, so we don't have to do a written response. And we continue to provide coaching to some of our team who struggle with answering complaints. So where are we up to now at 90 days? And I'll pass you over to Beth.
Hi, my name is Bev Brown and I'm Head of Nursing for Emergency Specialty Medicine. So sorry about that, we'll just turn that phone off. So what we've done is started collecting data to measure our defects. Now we started that after the 60-day report out, so unfortunately I've not got anything data-wise to compare it to. But we looked at two elements. One element was about the number of rejected responses, and the other one was about the time taken during the internal QA process. So currently, on our last measurements for the last 30 days, the time taken to review complaints is currently between 8 and 50 minutes, with an average time of 14.5 minutes per QA. This is following the work that we've done. So as I say, we don't have anything to compare it to, but as a feel, it does feel as though it's taking less time to QA our complaints since we've put this additional work in. There have been 8 rejected complaints by external QA, and 1 of which was rejected by execs, and that does feel to be in a much better position than we were before, which hopefully means that the quality of our responses with all the work that we're doing is improving. So what's the impact on that? So the first thing is it's a more timely QA process, which means that we get the complaint response out to the complainant a lot quicker, which is what we're aiming to do. That's the whole point in doing this. And by sharing our standard work form, this has changed the conversations within the teams and is driving change. And that's what the Leeds Improvement Method is about. Next slide, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Donna Pearson and I'm Head of Nursing for TRS. So where are we 90 days on? I think I echo the comments of everyone else in saying that I was really pleased to be involved in this improvement project. I think complaints, timeliness and quality was one of those areas that we worried about within the CSU. And it no longer feels such a difficult challenge. So it's just timely to say thank you to everybody in the CSU team that's been involved, the patient experience team and the KPO team for their support with this. So just to recap, we are continuing our weekly huddles. They take place every Monday. They're attended by the TRI team, the matron team, the business team and our complaint handler from patient experience. And that goes really well, and that was embedded really quickly and very easily, I have to say. We have our new tracker in progress and that continues. We are also adding in internal CSU metrics, which are reviewing the time taken for myself, the head of nursing, to QA and amend draft responses, and also the level of change that is required. And then also measuring this following the Trust QA process. This does support our coaching of the teams in preparing responses, and that increases the learning across the CSU to develop the quality of those responses produced. We're reviewing the effectiveness of complaint resolution meetings, and we are finding that actually in these current times, some of our patients and families are very open to virtual meetings. So we'll continue to offer those where they're appropriate. Our standard work complaint template has been implemented and that's now established within the wider CSU. And our complaints that we receive, we did a process of calling the complainant when we received that. We previously reported that that was well received and that does continue. And that clarifies the issues that we have to respond to, and then also provides reassurance to the complainant that their concerns are being investigated in a timely way. The impact, we have got PDSAs in progress to assess this. One of the things that we have identified is which areas of improvement we need to focus on. And one of those examples is our clinical engagement in the process. And I'm really pleased to report that we've actually had requests from some of our consultants within the CSU to be more involved in this feedback and learning process and sharing that across their teams, which is a really positive step for us. So 90 days on, the patient experience team have provided us with a date for a coaching session, and I'm pleased to say that we've got a number of staff who are engaged and have booked onto that session. Our internal coaching, we are trialling this and continuing to try it. Due to recent operational pressures, we haven't embedded that as strongly as we would have liked to, but we will continue with that. We do find, however, that our weekly focus and our weekly huddle is actually impacting on the engagement and quality responses across the whole team. We are continuing with our metrics, as we said, internally, and as Bev reported earlier, I don't have any previous data around the time taken for myself to amend and QA responses. But the longest one that I've had in the last 8 complaints has been on average 30 minutes. And I can honestly say from a personal experience that is much less than previously. So I'm really proud of the team in the effort that they've placed on that. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Well, thanks everybody for your contribution. It's great to hear all these positive comments, and it's been a real delight working with everybody on this as well. So, what are our next steps? Well, we're going to continue with our weekly accountability meetings with each of the teams presenting today. They're really productive, and we learn great lessons from them. We are going to continue beyond the 90-day report app, because actually I think it will take some time for us really to see mature data coming through to get a real feel of what's happening, particularly with the new response framework. So we want to keep going with this. We also want to share learning with all the CSUs, specifically with regard to the complaint handler attending the CSU complaint huddles, the standard work plans, which are great, and actually just listening to Donna there as well. We should include ringing complainants at the outset of an investigation. I think there are three things that we could recommend to all CSUs almost immediately. The other thing that we are doing is carrying on with the data monitoring as well. That's really crucial to support anything that we're doing. And finally, we're thinking of including 4 new CSUs in the new year, perhaps in February time, and we will let you know. Watch this space. So that's the end of our report out. Thank you very much for listening. And if there are any questions, very happy to take them. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my word. So could you all take your mics off? Because I think that deserves a massive round of applause. Oh, blown away. Absolutely blown away. Christina, John, Julie, Celia, Robin, Bev, Donna. Wow. Just what a massive team effort. And I can't believe, like you, it's 90 days. That has just gone like that, hasn't it? I will open it up to questions, but some fab observations. Really like the clinical engagement. Love the use of the visuals that we know works so well with the Leeds improvement method. The use of data, the huddles, just absolutely phenomenal, really. And do you know, at a time when handling for the families of our patients or our patients has never been so important. I love your attention to really making sure that we are picking up the phone, understanding the issue, and genuinely understanding what we're dealing with, rather than concerned about a backlog and a process and it feeling overwhelming. So it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I will, before we start losing people, shall I just open it up to questions or anything else that you wanted to say really informally that weren't on your slides?
I just will, Jenny. More as an informal observation, really. I'd say that before I came into this process, yeah, I've been responsible for complaints for an awful long time now, a good few years, and no matter what we seemed to try, it was really difficult to make any material difference. And I've just been astounded actually how this process has really got us to a different place, really quite quickly when you think about the amount of time we've been working on this to date. So, you know, I'm personally delighted. I love being part of it. It's a fabulous thing to be in, and the support the KPO team have given us as well, I would say. Without them, I think, taking me through some wobbly bits, I don't think I'd be stood here today saying I feel great about it, you know. So great kudos to them too for everything they've done to help us. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. You should feel very proud, all of you. And I will echo just what Christina's saying, because, you know, these are things that the board are really, we talk about a lot. And Christina, I think you hit the nail on the head for me. There's been a lot of effort going into trying to improve this. This process is, as you say, has fundamentally unblocked something here, which is fabulous, really good, and lovely to see that you're going to start with some more CSUs in February. I'm conscious we're going to lose people soon. Anybody got a burning question or an observation you'd like to make? It's quite a bit in the chat, which I think is brilliant. Hope you can see it. Okay. Well, what a wonderful way to spend a Friday lunchtime. Brilliant. Well done, team. Really, really good. And we'll see you back here next Friday. Take care.